because man's task is to make the earth after the model of heaven. Thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Man's project is to heavenize the earth. Man is made to transform the world from glory to glory, to take hold of it and break it down and remake it after the image of heaven.
Welcome back to the Reformed Reset. My name is Grant, and joined with me is my beautiful wife, Ericha, the weaker vessel.
Hello, everyone.
And some guests are joining us on this episode. Jake, say hello to the people.
Hello.
And Aaron.
Hello.
And Knox.
Yes. Knox is here too.
Guys, real quick, make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel and go into the description below for links to our social media, website, merch store, Patreon, all that kind of stuff. Hit the like button, leave a comment, give us some feedback. We love interacting with you guys. And
that's it.
I think that's it. You'll be able to tell from the title of this episode that we're going to be talking about preterism on this episode, and in particular, the dust-up concerning Gary DeMar right now. And as a way of, intro, or just to let you guys know, we have some other content. Jake and I actually both interviewed Sam Frost, who once was a hyper-preterist and has come out of that theological conviction. And there was another video I was going to suggest. I can't remember now.
The baptism one?
Yeah. We had the Lajoies
right,
on our podcast. That was like 2 years ago now, guys. Yeah. Talking about their journey into Paedobaptist conviction. So go check that stuff out. Maybe I'll put little links, cards, on the video here so you guys can click on it and watch it. But anyway, some good stuff. And you were with me for the Doug Wilson interview as well. I was. Anything else? Or is that it?
I think those are it.
Yeah. Well, we did the
the Halloween.
Oh, that's right.
Yep.
That's true. Yep, the Halloween one. Yep.
You guys were in the Deep Weird series. That's right. We've roped you guys in here all the time.
Have you guys noticed that everyone's talking about a version of the Deep Weird now?
Yeah.
I was listening to True Crime Garage, and they were blurbing a new podcast coming out called High Strange or something like that.
Are you serious?
And I was like, that's interesting.
Why is it always like a directional word and then
I don't know.
a word of abnormality?
I don't know. It was James B. Jordan was the first person I heard talk about the Deep Weird, and that was in the 80s. So I feel like he's
the pioneer.
Yeah.
Yeah, we just stand upon his shoulders.
Okay, so for those who may be a whole lot like myself, what is preterism? I know what that is, but I don't necessarily know all the details about the DeMar stuff, why I should care. How is it going to affect the average person or the church, or can you kind of just explain a little bit of that before you guys get into everything? Yeah,
and this is going to happen all throughout, because I think as we bring out certain points, we'll be able to look at how this directly applies to how you read your Bible, how you live your life, how you look at something like the Great Commission. Mm-hmm. And so it does affect a lot of just the basic day-to-day Christian life. And we were friends with some hyper-preterists back in the day, and you could kind of tell, this really does affect how you see just the day-to-day Christian life. And so that may come out too. But preterism, and jump in whenever you want, Jake. Yep. Preterism, usually there are a few adjectives placed before the word preterism to help people know where you are landing. So I would comfortably call myself a partial preterist, just because I see almost all, or just a whole lot of prophecy in the New Testament to be referring to the destruction of Jerusalem and the destruction of the temple in AD 70. But not all of it, so I'm partial.
So it's an eschatological viewpoint on how much of the book of Revelation is already fulfilled.
Well, that's definitely part of it. Yeah. But it's the Olivet Discourse. It's all over, really.
So portions of the Bible, then, not just Revelation.
Right. Yeah. Okay. It's anything.
Prophecy.
Anything.
The New Testament specifically. Yeah.
Yeah, and anything future minded. So anytime Paul's talking about a future something, that comes into play.
Is this uniquely argument that you'd find in like a post-millennial camp? Because would a pre-millennial whatever would not have any concept of like this.
Well,
would they?
They're the complete opposite end.
Right.
Everything's future.
Right.
And
in modern times, it's a more post-millennial thing.
Yeah.
Does it affect the Amils at all?
No, they just stick to
there are some Amil preterists. Yeah.
Oh, really?
Okay.
Yeah. Especially with the Olivet Discourse, not as much with Revelation, but
gotcha. Amils are more, what was that called? Idealist.
So if you don't know much about post-millennialism, you might be a little bit confused going forward.
Well, and I think there is a trend. This is why I think it's important for us to sit down and have a chat about this, because there is a trend right now to reject Gnosticism. We care about the here and now. We care about culture. We want to engage culture and all that kind of stuff. We don't want to just have our heads in the clouds. So then something like preterism, where, hey, all that heads in the clouds stuff that your Dispy friends were telling you about, it's all done, man. And so if you have that tendency, you might be like, oh, well, great, because all I did want to care about was the here and now and not the future anyway. So I can see that, and you see that with the trad movement, with the homesteading movement. I just want to build my life, build my family right here and now. And obviously I'm not saying those things are bad, but there's that temptation to overreact to the loony Dispy.
There's a ditch on both sides.
Yep. Right. Exactly. So there's a ditch.
Focus.
That's right. Yes.
Yep.
Anyway, have you ever heard of Paul Hill? This is such a sidetrack. Paul Jennings Hill. He was a Christian recon guy in the 90s.
Okay.
Who went off uber theonomy, but went off the rails and ended up killing an abortionist doctor.
Oh, okay.
And anyway, I guess it was a huge thing in the 90s, how to handle this situation.
I think I've heard of that story. I just don't think I've heard the guy's name before.
Yeah, anyway, there's a way that you can, have good convictions and then take it too far.
Right.
But
so preterism is good so long as you don't take it too far.
There you go.
Like anything.
The end.
Podcast over. Thanks for watching, everyone. Okay, so I guess when did you first learn about preterism or start getting into studying it? Because you and I have a lot of fun conversations over eschatology.
Yeah.
But when did that happen for you? How did you come to know about preterism?
So probably Douglas Wilson was the first person I heard just the general idea from. Hyper-preterism is kind of like a hobby of mine, has been for a while. I honestly don't remember where that started. I think it may have started with a Sam Frost interview I just came across on YouTube, and I just fell really far down the rabbit hole about it.
That can happen on YouTube when it comes to preterism.
Yeah. So I think that was probably, I don't know, 3 or 4 years ago probably that I really got into especially the hyper side of it and trying to understand how people arrive at that opinion.
Were you ever tempted to believe any of it? Did it ever almost have you?
Not really. No, there were maybe individual passages that I'm still futurist about that I could kind of see a little bit where they were coming from. But I kind of, looked out over the abyss and was kind of like, this doesn't...
It's bleak.
This just doesn't feel right. And a lot of the presuppositions, when you stop back and think, well, why is that, a presupposition? When you adopt a handful of, hermeneutical ideas and then just apply them everywhere, it's easy to end up in that place. But then that should make you think, well, are these presuppositions I'm using even correct in the first place?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think I always heard about it, and then even in Dispy days, you read certain commentaries and they go down the list of here are the main interpretations of Revelation, even though it's a Dispy writing the commentary, they touch on it. And I remember thinking, just complete bananas. These guys are totally out to lunch. And then when we were becoming post-mill, our full preterist friends were all excited, and they're like, oh, we were post-mill once, and then I just kept studying, and I was like, whoa, I don't want Like, I don't want to head down that road. And then I remember we were at their house hanging out, and one of their friends who was full preterist had his Bible out, and he was so energetic, and he was like, check it out. Look, and it says soon. It's not going to, like, it's just going through this stuff. And what's funny is, like, I totally agree with you, man. Like, I agree with everything you're saying in my partial preterist understanding. And then it's that extra stuff. And this is what Gary DeMar, we've talked about this a lot. Gary DeMar is confusing, muddled,
so who is Gary
foggy.
DeMar? Who
like
is that?
Those are we'll get that just a sec. But like that,
you mentioned him. I don't know who that is.
Yeah, so that
I mean, I do, but
but it's that extra stuff. So a post-mill partial preterist like Doug Wilson or whatever, a lot of these reformed guys in our circles hold to, but then there's the extra stuff. It's those few things, and that's what we're gonna really focus on. So Gary DeMar, who's Gary DeMar, Jake?
Who, Jake? Who?
Gary DeMar is the president of. He's the president, right? Of American Vision, which has been a big culture and worldview. That's kind of has been his main thing,
right?
I've
bought several books from American Vision, mainly James Jordan ones, but I have. Yep, they're up there. So American Vision's just a huge, and it's a very popular ministry. Gary DeMar started out writing mostly stuff on government, what the Bible has to say about government. He's written a lot of little books, even for kids and stuff, on America's Christian founding and things like that. And then he says that in the 80s, with the advent of Hal Lindsey's book, The Late Great Planet Earth, he got swept into eschatology because he realized so many people were being duped into the dispensationalism, and so he started writing books, Last Days Madness, Lies, Myths, and Half-Truths. Is that the other one?
End Times Fiction was about Left Behind series.
So he's got a slew of books in the 80s, maybe it's the 90s too, all about eschatology.
Yep.
Now, since I have embraced Reformed theology, cards on the table, I have not read one of Gary DeMar's books. I don't even know if I own one of his books.
I think you do.
And I own a lot of books.
I own one.
You own that one?
Wars and Rumors of Wars, which is his commentary on Matthew
I do
24.
own. I own the kids one about America's Christian founding.
Okay.
I don't think I own any of your his actual monographs or anything. But I listened to a bunch of interviews and pretty much liked what I heard. His argument. There was one radio program he was arguing with a pre-trib, pre-mill guy, and thought it was good. He's been on Cross Politic, or I've listened to his podcast a bunch of times, and it all seemed fine. Then enter our interview with Sam Frost.
Yep. That's true, because that came up almost 2 years ago.
Yeah, that was almost 2 years ago too, which is one of our most watched videos on our channel, is our interview with Sam Frost. And it was during that interview, I think, right, when he actually tells us that this whole time, this last 20, 30 years, since the Max King, Sproul, even James Jordan was involved, they're all trying to figure out who these full preterists were and kind of sifting out their group there. Ever since then, till now, Gary DeMar has spoken at full preterist conferences, endorsed their books. They've written blogs on American Vision,
and vice versa. He's written blogs for full preterist websites.
Right, and I remember sitting there with Sam Frost thinking, what's his angle? Trying to give the benefit of the doubt. What's his angle with doing that? Is it like Michael Foster speaking at that men's conference? They're not Christians, but he's the token Christian guy or whatever. Is it something like that, or what? You know what I mean? Because that's not just Baptist, or we're talking, it's heresy. Right. It denies a basic tenet, and we'll get to that in just a sec. Denies the basic tenets of Christianity. So that kind of put my tentacles up. Little spidey senses. I wonder what's up there. And then, so what's happened recently with these 3 questions? I think Ken Gentry is
they didn't
first publicly, right?
Yeah, I don't believe they originated with Ken Gentry.
Okay.
Gary DeMar, he had mentioned that passingly in one of the podcasts, that Kenneth Gentry got roped into the whole thing, so I'm assuming that means it didn't completely start with him.
Yeah.
But that's when it kind of started to gain more widespread attention when he started commenting on his Facebook posts and writing, blog articles on his website that were clearly about Gary DeMar, even if he didn't come out and say it.
Right.
And this just persistent, and just the sea of voices just grew louder and louder. Why won't you answer these
3 questions?
Very simple
questions.
You
have those in your notes? The 3 questions?
I don't.
We can pull those
but I remember what they are.
Okay. Well, first, I think it was in a different Facebook group. I saw someone share that clip. I don't think it was Nathan Anderson. It might have been someone else, but it's that clip from the Burrows of Berea, which is a full preterist interfaith podcast.
What does that mean?
It means Jews, Muslims, interfaith. That's what I understand from Army days. That's what interfaith means.
Okay.
But Gary was a guest on there, and somebody was like, what is Gary saying in this clip? And it was more so like... And so in the clip, I guess we could figure out how to play it, but he just denies that your physical body that lays in the grave is resurrected ever, and that when you die and go to be with the Lord, that's when you get your spiritual body, right then.
Yeah, you just get a new body.
And the physical body in the grave just disintegrates and goes away, and bye-bye. And that was my first, whoa, that's totally denial of the resurrection. And then I saw the Ken Gentry, hey, Gary, can you please answer these questions? Because some people are worried. And that's how it first was presented. This is what I saw was, some people are concerned. You said some weird things here at this conference or that whatever on this podcast, and we just want some clarification. Crickets.
Yep.
Or snarky, I'm not answering your questions.
Yep.
Because all that does is lead to more. Does it? Maybe that is all we're wondering.
Yeah.
It's just kind of weird.
He's very liberal with the block button, too.
Mm-hmm.
So Sam Frost has been blocked by Gary DeMar on Facebook, just as an example.
Ken Gentry yet?
No, I don't think so. I think he knows he couldn't get away with that one as easily.
Well, I don't understand why being asked more questions would necessarily be a bad thing either, though. Because if you're not trying to hide something, if you're not trying to hide something, then I don't people ask questions all the time. It shouldn't be a nuisance when that's basically what your entire job is answering questions.
Especially if they're basic tenets of the Christian faith.
Right.
I feel like you should be able to ask those questions. It doesn't really matter how many there are.
Or from who.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
But that's why I thought, he'll answer Ken Gentry, right?
Yeah, no.
And he didn't. And so I found that pretty shocking, because this whole time I've thought, I have nothing to prove this at all. But this whole time I'm like, something's personal here. Mm-hmm. And obviously I don't know what it is. I don't know these men. I'm not friends with them. But even watching social media interaction, like big name people will respond to the nobodies all the time on social media. Why isn't Gary responding to Ken Gentry, another expert in eschatology? They're both post-mill. That's exactly who you would respond to. I think they wrote books together in the 80s.
Probably.
For the Christian Recon stuff. I think they have. But they've been in that same group for decades. So what's happening? So what are the 3 questions that he's been asked?
Okay, so the first question was, you believe in a bodily second coming in the future.
Okay, of Christ.
Of Christ.
Right.
Question 2, do you believe in the general bodily resurrection of all men?
Okay.
And number 3 was, do you believe in a future final judgment that will usher in a perfected new creation? Basically, that's a loose paraphrase.
Okay.
But that's,
So a future bodily return of Christ.
Yep.
A general bodily resurrection.
Yep.
Of everyone, because we do believe that.
Yep.
It's just unbelievers are not resurrected to the same state that believers are, because they're not united to Christ. Right. And then a future judgment.
Yep.
Yeah. Great. All right. So, everyone, he can't answer those questions. So this is what you and I have been talking about is, I get nuance on, say, a verse and interpretations or hermeneutics, and, if you take it, I don't know, you can take it several different ways or something, but we're talking about basic Orthodox beliefs that you can even find in the Apostles' Creed, the Nicene Creed, the earliest confessions or the earliest creeds that the global church, the universal church, agreed to.
Yep.
And he's like befuddled.
Yep.
You know, I'm not really sure what verses I can.
They're not as basic to him apparently as they are to the rest of us.
Right. So that's what's concerning. So Gary didn't respond to anyone. A letter went out with a lot of very important names attached to it, asking him to answer these questions. You had Jeff Durbin, Doug Wilson, Uri Brito,
James White,
Sam Frost,
John Frame was one of the original signers of that letter too.
I'm reading that Van Til book that John Frame wrote. It's so good. Andrew Sandlin's the one that published it. Did Gentry sign that letter too?
Yep.
Yeah. There's a few other names too. But anyway,
those are the most recognizable ones, at least.
So Gary DeMar decided to respond on his podcast.
Yep.
And what did we find on that podcast, Jake? We've talked about this.
So he talked.
Did he answer the 3 questions?
No,
he didn't.
He said for 5 hours of talking, he said very little. It was a lot of repetition, a lot of I don't know if whining is too rude of a word, but there's a lot of just general complaining that if I answer these questions and
complaining
what's next,
yeah, they put it publicly, they did this, they did that, or whatever.
Why are you picking on me?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's a good way to put it. Why are you picking on me?
Yeah. It's a free country.
The only point of his in that regard that I would agree with is his idea that I've been saying this for 25 years. Why is everyone just making a stink of it now? And that I would agree with. The fact that.
Can you imagine what Sam Frost, he's the one who literally has been sort of bringing this up, hello, guys. Yeah. And we're all just oh, it's Uncle Gary.
And to his defense, I understand, we do kind of live in cancel culture where, people love to just all band together and, go torch someone's house or something. I get that.
Digital lynch mobs.
But, these are your friends. These are people who are supposed to be your friends that are asking you questions. So it's not just strangers on the internet. These are people who you're supposed to trust and love and be in fellowship with. So it's kind of different than that, I do think.
Well,
right?
Yeah.
The apostles canceled a lot of people too.
Right.
That were called out by name for their heretical beliefs.
If a random person starts calling you out for how you talk to your wife, you'd give them far less credit than if Grant or Pastor Bolin came to you and was you know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah.
The relationship should kind of have some weight to it, I think.
So the very first podcast episode was probably his most gracious towards the people that originally questioned him, saying, a lot of these men are my friends, I know these men love me, stuff like that. The last few is where he got a little more chippy about the whole thing, where he just seemed to be
running out of patience.
Right. Yeah.
Well, so one of the main frustrations that he let out, and we've talked a lot about this, is that he's accusing these signers of the letter of just not allowing any variance on interpretation or something with verses. He's if you look at all these guys who even signed the letter, they don't agree on every verse that's cited for these doctrines, or they all hold different positions, right? You could even see Jeff Durbin, James White, Credo Baptist, and a lot of the other ones, Paedo Baptist. And so, there's all these differences, and apparently that's okay, but if I question any verse and what it means, then apparently that's wrong, and I'm a heretic, and on and on. And you and I were talking the other night, and I was like, we're fine with discussion and variance and stuff until you start denying basic doctrines of orthodoxy.
Yeah.
You've crossed a certain line, whereas all those other things don't. Dispensationalists, whether you're, classical or whatever, amill, post-mill, whatever, they all still believe in the resurrection.
Right.
They all still believe that when Jesus comes back, there's going to be a judgment, a final judgment.
Yeah. They all agree. Every eschatological viewpoint all agree on those 3 things.
Yeah.
That's the only thing that every eschatological belief has always agreed on.
Yes.
That's part of the, well, you have all these different eschatological beliefs, and you know,
what was it?
Douglas Wilson has a video, it's pretty old now, I think it's 10 years old almost.
Why you're not a hyper-preterist.
Right, where he was asked a question about preterism, and he said, the only thing the historic church has ever agreed on when it comes to eschatology is full preterists are wrong. That's literally the only thing. You know, he will come again to judge the living and the dead. That's, you know, and some of the other creeds, you know, go further than that. You know, obviously the resurrection of the body. And, you know, so look forward to life in the age to come, things like that. So, yeah, the idea that full preterism is an error is the only thing everyone's ever agreed on. About. Yeah.
That's so good. Oh man, I had another thought on that.
It should almost be like that much more of a warning too. Like if the credos and the paedos can get together and be like, nope, you're wrong. It should be like 2 fingers pointing at you, bud. You know, like if they're agreeing on this.
Basically, every Christian finger on earth is, the Orthodox can point at him, the Catholics can point at him, every brand of Protestantism can point at him.
Right.
Right.
That's what I was going to say is all those different groups too. They may not all have, so something that Gary was saying, but these groups may not all have the same verses that get them there, but they all at least had one.
Yeah.
That got them there.
Yeah, because apparently we all need to agree on what the proof texts are to have unity on a particular belief, which is, I mean, it's ridiculous. I mean, if you go through any confession of faith, you're not going to agree with every single, the Westminster Confession of Faith has... a proof text at the bottom.
I know
most of the editions that come out. Not all of us are going to agree with. I don't know if I would appeal to that one. So I guess apparently we can't have doctrinal standards at all unless we have universal agreement on every single verse.
Yeah, no, that's good. That's very good. I know for a fact I wouldn't with some of the proof texts. I'm like, how did you get there? Yeah, don't use that one. But anyway, yeah, where do we go from here now?
I don't know. I got a lot of notes, so if you have a
go for it. What do you?
So let's see here. So probably my biggest pet peeve is the whole heresy and orthodoxy thing. So he said one of the biggest red flags with Gary DeMar for a long time is that he's never wanted to call hyper-preterist heretics. He says, I'm not going to do that because he said in the first episode that basically believing in a non-bodily resurrection was within the orbit of orthodoxy. Was the exact term that he used.
There's an orbit, huh?
Right. Okay. So he seems to have his own... It would appear he has his own, some made-up definition of heresy and orthodoxy. Yeah. Because a lot of people...
That's convenient.
In social media, this is anecdotal, but, YouTube, Facebook comments, things like that, essentially mock at the idea, also, the orthodoxy is just what, Christians, have always believed. It's like, well, yeah, that's what orthodoxy means, actually. So the joke I made with you is you don't have to call them heretics. The dictionary calls them heretics. That's literally what heresy means. If you're introducing a completely variant idea from universally accepted that's literally what heresy means. And
no one is going to be able to understand you.
So I went to dictionary.com, printed off the definitions of heresy and orthodoxy.
Divine it for us.
I want to... You want me to read them all, or just...
It didn't take you very long.
Couple of them. Okay. So these are the definitions of heresy. Okay. Opinion or doctrine at variance with the orthodox or accepted doctrine, especially of a church or religious system.
Okay.
I'd say denying a bodily resurrection fits with that definition. The maintaining of such an opinion or doctrine, the definition of the Roman Catholic Church, the willful and persistent rejection of any article of faith by a baptized member of the church. They have a much larger list than we would, but still generally good. Any belief or theory that is strongly at variance with established beliefs and customs. So those are all the definition of heresy. So I'm not quite sure what definition of heresy Gary DeMar is working with, that he finds denying a bodily resurrection not heretical.
Right.
Because this is not something Christians, unless the early Gnostics count, has ever believed.
Right.
So maybe it's a sliding scale like gender fluidity.
So these are the definitions of orthodox, okay?
Okay.
Of of relating to or conforming to the approved form of any doctrine, philosophy, ideology. Okay.
Yeah.
Of relating to or conforming to beliefs, attitudes, or modes of conduct that are generally approved, customary or conventional as a means or method, established, sound or correct in opinion or doctrine, especially theological or religious doctrine. This is the last one, and my personal favorite, conforming to the Christian faith as represented in the creeds of the early church. So,
yeah,
the idea that it's like, yes, the historic belief of the church is what determines heresy and orthodoxy.
Right.
Me just coming along, I don't think a oneness Pentecostalism is that unbiblical, so I'm not going to call it heresy. It's like, well, that's not what I deem a viable biblical option.
Right. Yeah.
Doesn't define what heresy and orthodoxy are.
It's actually
which seems to be the definition that he wants to use,
right?
Because he'll call full preterism within the orbit of orthodoxy when it's not, and also say that things that Christians have believed forever, whether you agree with them or not, beliefs you can find going back a long way. Well, that's heretical just because he thinks it's biblically stupid. Well, that doesn't. Something can be biblically stupid objectively and not be heretical, So.
No, that's good. So, I mean, we have no problem saying that what he's holding to right now, from everything that we can gather from Facebook comments that he made, because Gary's pretty active on Facebook. You can find him responding to stuff all the time. He responded to me the other day, but it was snarky and a little confusing and stuff.
Yeah, I didn't understand what it meant.
I don't know. And I was just saying that multiple or various opinions don't equal
every opinion is valid.
Right,
yeah.
they're not all valid. Which is what he keeps trying to say. But his what he's teaching or what he is sharing on Facebook, as far as we can tell, is heretical, because he's not holding to the Orthodox faith, right? So if somebody came into our church and we have membership vows, and it was like, here, we interview them and start asking them about doctrine, and they just won't answer something
right.
like, so you believe Jesus is, the Son of God, deity and man, but and they're just like, I'm just asking questions. And they just wouldn't answer. Yeah. Like, they're not saying no, but they won't affirm it. They're not coming into membership. Like, this person's not saved yet. Like, we need to teach them doctrine or whatever. And if they just held their ground, I don't know if I want to answer your questions. It's probably going to lead to more. You just
a lot of times non-answer is an answer.
Yeah, non-answers create more questions than...
Yeah, that's true too. Yeah. It has to, in some sense, be some kind of an answer. So, anyway, it's so concerning, and it's only getting worse, it seems. And I know there are people planning to try to meet with him and get him to answer, because there are those who still platform his podcast and stuff, and I don't want to go throwing people under the bus or anything, but they want to follow due process in church courts, church government, and
what church does he belong to?
It's a PCA church in Georgia, isn't it?
I don't know.
I know Michael Foster posted publicly that he contacted Gary and his pastor, and I think the stated clerk for their presbytery as well. So he tried to address the leadership and say, hey, I got people in my church asking questions, and so I'm asking you, what are you guys doing about this? Are you aware that he's right? He kind of gave the benefit of the doubt. Maybe they don't know Gary's out here acting crazy.
Gary himself said that his church has been supportive through this whole thing, which I find almost more discouraging than him he by himself.
I mean, it is the PCA though, so
right. Yeah, it's sad.
Home of the revoice,
Oh, exactly. Yeah, that's a good point.
Right. So, yeah, what they tolerate is not, it's like the Corinthians,
Yeah.
We even tolerate this guy. It's Paul. It's a heretic. What are you doing tolerating? That's not what you should be tolerating. You've gone too far, man. That is to your shame.
So you said in the beginning you think there's a personal element to it. Do you still think that?
Yeah. I don't know what that is. I don't know exactly who But I don't know. Normally,
that's why he responded so coyly.
Right. That's what makes me think.
Coy?
With so much coyness.
All of those sound wrong.
I said it, but I realized I didn't know how to say it properly.
Coyly. I think coyly is the...
But it's weird.
In such a coy way.
Yes, there you go. In such a coy way.
Usually you don't say something like, I'm not answering your questions because I know where that leads. Unless you know that person, because either you know it won't because you trust this person, you know them, or you have no idea, and so you're like, well, I would have. But if you know the person is baiting, or they're sort of trying to be sly because of some history, then I could see that. But
because he definitely seemed that he felt like trapped or pinned.
It wasn't an honest
or something. Yeah.
Like it wasn't an honest just, hey, can you answer this? Or something. So I don't know.
Whether that's a valid response or not is a different question, but he did seem like he was evading.
Well, and we've talked about this too. Like that evasiveness maybe was on purpose with a certain person, but then once you did it publicly, now there's thousands of people, not just this one guy. And so, maybe it was smart personally when it was just the email they sent you. But now it's gone. Now thousands of people are looking at it and they don't know. But all they do is see you dodging these pretty basic questions. Yeah. And, now I've seen tons of people say, I used to recommend this stuff and I no longer do, and I no longer will, or whatever. And then the other thing is, even if you were to come out and say, I affirm all three. Yeah. I mean, you've done messed up, AA Ron. Like, a lot of people are going to be just bothered by the fact that you caused this whole thing. And that's going to be...
Yeah, there's a whole lot of division caused because of this.
Yeah, that's going to make it difficult for people to purchase from American Vision.
Discord among the brethren.
Whatever. Yeah. I don't know if I want to support the guy who's okay with doing that. Or, I mean, I guess it depends on if and how he comes around.
Because to give him the benefit of the doubt a little bit is you don't know his side necessarily, which is also his fault though, right? Like we don't know his side, but he also hasn't told us his side, so maybe that will come out in the interview.
The thing I always come back to is not answering is an answer.
Yeah.
So the analogy I keep using is if your wife comes home and says, "Are you cheating on me?" And you just say, if I answer that question, then what's next?
There's only so many times you can do that before.
There's only so many times you can do that before,
If I answer this question, how many more are there going to...
It's like, why would I answer that? So you can, take the kids and leave me? Well, that in and of itself is an answer.
Yeah.
So when you say, why would I answer those questions, everyone's just going to call me a heretic. That means you would answer the questions heretically.
Right.
Exactly.
Because I feel like if he were to just come out and say, honestly, I don't know, I feel like that would get him less heat than the way he has handled it.
Yeah.
Now, he would still get heat, admittedly.
Right.
But if it was just kind of this, but if he just said, honestly, I don't know.
Well, I mean, there was the whole thing about Doug Wilson having a personal conversation with him, giving him advice on how you should answer these questions. And he wouldn't. Yeah. He wouldn't do it.
So Douglas Wilson. Yeah. So he mentioned in one of the podcasts that Douglas Wilson had given him a suggestion that he didn't take, and then Douglas Wilson published an article a week or two after that had what the suggestion was at the end, which was essentially, this is what you could say.
Right.
To, kind of, which would basically be, I affirm all three of these for theological reasons, but basically I haven't done the work biblically to defend them with,
text.
I haven't parsed out all the details.
Yeah.
But I understand that these are theologically vital to, the Christian faith and the Christian worldview.
Right.
Which he said, well, even if I had said that, everyone would have just said, I affirm them just to get people off my back. It's like, I don't think that's true.
Yeah.
I don't think some people may have stayed on his back if he had said that.
That's the person you can't ever please anyway.
But I think the real reason is he can't say that because he doesn't actually believe the 3 points. I think that's more of the reason why he wouldn't do it. Because I think most of the people upset about the whole thing right now probably would calm down a little bit if he basically said that. I just haven't done the work to argue for all of these biblically, but I understand, like, it would be detrimental basically to the Christian worldview to completely, cast off these three ideas.
Right.
So.
Yeah, no. That's good. Do we want to get into the verses at all, or not really?
So he did address some specific verses. As far as I can tell, he takes the hyper-preterist understanding of literally every verse he talks about. Yeah. So,
but even all of the, but even you and I have gone back and forth with texts like Philippians 3:21 was one of them, and it's like it's just pretty clear that And I just read it this morning in 1 Corinthians 5 or 6, but it's like there's no other way unless you do a little dance. But Paul's talking about our physical bodies will again be alive after death. It'll be resurrected. Our physical bodies here. I read a comment he left on Facebook, and he was talking about how what was it, babe? How depressing it would be.
I'm not on Facebook, so I can't help you.
Yeah, I read it too earlier. Talking about our disembodied state with our bodies here decaying and waiting the resurrection, and we're just disembodied with the Lord. And he called that so depressing. And I'm like, you're with the Lord. Yeah. How in the world is that depressing?
That wasn't Paul's view of to be absent with the body is to be present with the Lord, and how depressing that is. That's not what he said.
He said to die is gain.
Right.
Didn't he? Yeah. Like, he thought it was pretty awesome, actually, if the Lord decided to kill him. But the other thing was talking about how he made a comment on this screenshot I saw about how our bodies disintegrate, and he literally said, and your bodies literally don't exist anymore. And I don't know about you, but all growing up, I've been taught, like with the resurrection, whether you're buried and you disintegrate into dust, or whether you're cremated or whatever, God still knows where the you particles are.
Yep.
And in the resurrection, he is perfectly capable of gathering those back up, just like he created Adam from dust anyway, gathering those back up and resurrecting you. I don't know, why is that so crazy?
I mean, human bodies last a long time anyway, so it's sort of a silly thing we literally have like mummified bodies from like thousands of years ago, so it's sort of a weird comment anyway.
But if he thinks that we die and we get our spiritual body,
that's not resurrection, by the way.
That's not
just
resurrection.
As a side note.
But your bodies are still here. Like we went to Greg Strawbridge's memorial funeral and stuff, and it was open casket, and it was a week after he had passed away already.
Yeah,
or almost a week. Body's there, but he's got a new body. Well, there's a problem.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like what are you talking about? Also, what do we say every Easter? We're about to celebrate Easter. Tomb is empty, so that body was gone. It didn't stay there and disintegrate and just become nothing. And it was a whole nother, just doesn't fit. And we will be resurrected like Christ. Like we have a body like his. There's so many verses. We will be like him, united with him in his death and in his resurrection. Romans 6. It's all over the place.
Yep.
And even the Daniel 12 thing, because I've thought about this verse a lot too, because I was raised, that was just talking about resurrection in the end. And we've done some talking about this too. Like, let's say that even was, first of all, talking about the nation of Israel. Sure, fine, coming out of captivity, or Jesus coming back and or whatever. But these verses are type anti-type, right? Like even the destruction of Jerusalem and the temple and stuff, it's a type of the cosmic, the whole world destruction that'll happen at the end. That world was just the Roman Empire. There wasn't China, India, America, and everything. You know what I mean? And God is always doing stuff like that. Yep. Like the near and far fulfillment.
Right.
Hermeneutics. There's all kinds of ways to understand these things and not...
Which in the New Testament he seems completely unwilling to entertain.
Right.
The idea of double fulfillment or near fulfillment, far fulfillment, the analogy of the, two mountains that you see from far away. They look right next to each other, but when you get close, they're could be miles and miles apart, right?
Yeah.
He completely dismisses and almost mocks the idea that prophecies, have a partial fulfillment and a fuller fulfillment or double fulfillment, even though this is not how the apostles read the Old Testament.
No.
So,
True.
The prophecy of the virgin birth and, the new covenant and a lot of things.
Yeah. One of the doctrines under attack by liberal theology is always the resurrection itself. It makes
Jesus, you mean?
Of Jesus, yeah. Makes me real nervous when any theologian is starting to toy with the resurrection of anyone or just in general is not good.
That.
That's
another thing that he does that feels weaselly, for lack of a better word, just for the people who don't know any better, that he plays these word games. He'll talk about affirming the Nicene Creed because it says resurrection of the dead,
right,
which is the one he can most easily twist.
Yes,
because the Apostles' Creed says resurrection of the body. Originally said resurrection of the flesh, the original Apostles' Creed.
Oh, wow.
And the Athanasian Creed says that men will rise in their own bodies.
Right.
At the final
even
judgment.
More explicit.
Right. So he'll dismiss the other two, but stick with the Nicene Creed because it says resurrection of the dead.
Right.
Which he claims is because it's more biblical, because the Bible talks about the resurrection of the dead. It doesn't talk about resurrection of bodies, which isn't true either.
Yeah. It does, though.
Yeah. So he
So watch out for that sort of thing.
He claims, well, I believe in the resurrection of the dead. It's just, what does that mean? We wouldn't accept, like you said about liberals with the resurrection of Jesus. There are liberals who will say, oh, I believe in the resurrection of Jesus. And then you ask them what that means. So does that mean the tomb is empty? Well, of course not.
No,
he
brought his
message was revived in the spirit of his followers.
Right.
We would never accept that kind of playing around with the resurrection of Jesus.
Yep.
We would never accept, well, the tomb is still there. The body's still in the tomb. God just gave him a new one. That's what he appeared to his apostles in. We wouldn't accept that either. So,
right.
So
I want to encourage everybody that if you come across these arguments, feel assured that all the verses that you think teach you about the future resurrection probably do. Do not be duped into the language twisting, the confusing interpretations and stuff. Just don't do it, and beware. And again, back to the practicality of it. If there's no future judgment, if there's no future bodily resurrection, if there's no future bodily coming of Christ, it really does make you wonder, well, what are we doing then? Great Commission's done. Some of these deny they don't practice the sacraments anymore.
No.
That's actually depressing. That's the depressing thing.
Yeah.
Well, logically, it says we're to show the Lord's death till he comes. And he came already, so...
Right.
I
know a lot of them...
which he has said publicly, that's what he thinks that verse is talking about, the coming of the Lord. He's spoken of, and that verse is 80-70.
So I wonder if he takes the Lord's Supper.
He says, well, that doesn't mean we need to stop doing the Lord's Supper. But
why not?
It says, if you take it
that way.
Yeah.
Wow. I know a lot of them believe the Satan and all that are all thrown in the lake of fire now.
Yep. No more devil.
No more devil, period. Not even just bound. We believe he's bound by the power of the gospel. He's no longer able to deceive the nations, but gone. Just totally... Oh, no, he's done. Your only problem is you. That was what this hyper-preterist told me.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
That's it. It's just you.
It's all just natural temptation. We don't wrestle against principalities and powers anymore.
Right. All done.
That was... Which is... Yep. It actually kind of a posh sort of you're kind of bougie when you can say that. Because, anyone who, lives in the ghetto has seen some things before, and you're no, I know there's some things out there that I can't explain.
Right.
And it's not just me. It's real darkness. Real spirits. Real things.
Fair enough.
Just say, no one in Africa saying that.
Yeah, no full preterists in Africa.
No one in Haiti.
One of my chaplains, he was more on the Pentecostal side, but he's from Romania. Right, I'm getting this right?
Yep.
Yeah. But he had a relative who's a pastor or something, and he went with him to go to an exorcism at some
in Romania.
Like some gypsy. Yeah. It was like a gypsy village.
Yep.
And so they're all coming out of the Uber, I don't know, just witchcrafty stuff or whatever. Mm-hmm. And anyway, it was wild.
He talked about people like literally crawling up the wall like Spider-Man.
Just insane craziness happening. Yeah. Anyway, pretty sure they're not. Going to be hyper predator.
And you can't look at that person and be like, nah, the problem's just you, man.
Yeah. It's just you. Just natural
temptation.
You've naturally been that way. You're just really flexible.
Just really good pads on your fingers. Sticky, really.
Yeah, so I bring up all that because it's not just, being muddled on a verse or two. There really is a deep pit.
It's a danger.
And we were talking about this too, like, some are saying, hey, let's not make so much to do about it because it's like 12 people who believe this. Let's not give it more let's not give it more attention than it needs. But there's a lot of people. And I think right now, like I said at the beginning, there's people who have a tendency right now who I think would be duped to go that way because, you mean I can ditch the crazy Antichrist people, headline interpreters and stuff. There are a lot of people. Like I said, one of our most watched videos on our channel is our interview with Sam Frost about full preterism.
Yep.
And we've got a ton of comments on that, and people are very interested in this.
We'll get a ton on this one, probably.
Yeah.
Because people live on the internet because they have no church community.
Right.
Yeah, that's true.
All they have is blog posts and YouTube comments.
It might be true that there's only like 12 full preterist churches.
Yeah.
But people who hold to this, though, a lot of them just don't go to church because no one understands them.
Well, if we've come across them personally in our life, there has to be more than 12.
Yeah, true.
Well, I mean, the Bible itself says that the denial of the resurrection spreads like an infection.
Oh, right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Gangrene.
Gangrene, yes.
Yeah.
The flesh-eating bacteria.
Yeah.
So
it sounds within the orbit of orthodoxy to be teaching that the resurrection is past already.
Yeah, the specifics of denying the resurrection.
Yeah, I genuinely want to know, because you would have to think, because the full preterist says, well, I mean, it wasn't passed yet. That's how, they dismiss the whole Hymenaeus and Philetus thing. But you'd have to admit, well, if you're wrong about the resurrection being passed already, then that condemnation is as equally applicable to you as it was to them.
Yeah.
So
well, I think it was C.S. Lewis. It's probably, I don't know if it's in Mere Christianity or not, but I think he's the one that used to ask the question, like, to the unbeliever, like, what's worse if you're right, like, according to your stance right now, what's worse for you, whether I'm right or you're right?
Right.
Like, if I'm right, you're going to hell forever. If you're right, then, well, whatever. Let me be crazy, but I don't know why why you care.
Mm-hmm.
Pascal's wager,
right? But like, yeah, if I'm wrong, then it doesn't really matter.
Yep.
But if you're wrong, that's serious.
Well, if he's right, then you guys are just essentially like another dispensationalist in his eye, right? Like, but
just another misguided,
right?
Yeah.
But if it's the opposite, then he's in a lot of trouble,
right?
And everyone that he's I mean, you can't even consistently call yourself a Christian. Like, you're just not, and that's what all this is about. It's like that's just not what you are.
Yeah.
There's remnants of it, but none of us would look at like a Mormon who holds like...
There's remnants.
Yeah, there's like little things we agree. There's some overlap. Like, you believe in Jesus, kind of. Like, but nothing else matches up, so it's not the same. It's the same thing, really.
Man. Rob Bell. He had this analogy of Christian doctrines being like a brick in a brick wall, where you can remove a whole bunch of the bricks, the wall's still gonna stand. And and he used the analogy too of Christian doctrines are like the springs that hold a trampoline. Like, you can take out a whole bunch of them, and the trampoline's still gonna be there. And then one critique, I love Jake Eryn Lajoie and his book Christianity and Liberalism, but in his day they kind of boiled down Christian orthodoxy. It's like inerrancy of Scripture, infallibility, the virgin birth, resurrection. There was like a few of these things, and he got critique from people who said, you still can't just whittle down Christianity to just a few things and then everything else is secondary. It is all connected. It doesn't matter if there's overlap or not. It's Christian faith. The faith once delivered, once for all delivered to the saints. That matters as a whole. You know what I mean? Of course, I'm not saying that every doctrinal position is as important or as crucial, but
they're all interconnected somehow.
They're all interconnected, and
also, who wants to jump on that trampoline to see if it's safe?
Yeah, would you jump on the trampoline with 4 springs?
No.
I don't think I would.
You could probably, but who's going to test it? Who wants to?
But there are certain doctrines that the others stem from, and so if you took us that's the problem too, is he's equating every brick to the same level of importance, and every spring to the same level of importance. But we know that's not true.
Anyway. I don't think anybody really believes that denying the resurrection is just removing a spring. It's like taking, a knife to the middle of the trampoline. That's it's interesting that Toby Sumpter had put out a video a week or two ago.
Yeah.
About the whole Gary, the whole thing, and he had said that if he had to guess Gary's answers to the 3 questions.
Yeah.
He said his question to answer 1 about the body's second coming would be, maybe. His answer to question 2 about the resurrection would be probably not. And his answer to question 3 would be probably. I think those are what he said his 3. If he had to guess what his 3 answers were, because he won't answer them. So
we got to fill in the blanks.
The fact that the resurrection question is the one he's least likely to affirm,
right? The bodily
that's the most problematic of the 3 of them, in my opinion. I mean, the resurrection is so intimately connected.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, just look at 1 Corinthians 15.
Right.
To deny the resurrection of the dead.
Right.
If you say the dead do not rise, then Christ is not risen.
And you are still...
Our faith is in vain. We're still in our sins.
Yeah.
So this isn't...
We're to be pitied.
Right.
Again, so what I think of after you saying that is going, so yes, we need to be serious about how we are treating this. This is not a trivial thing. This is not, difference of opinion, like Gary's trying to say it is.
Yeah.
It's
sprinkling,
huge.
Pouring.
Is he trying to say it's just a difference of opinion? Like, is that the main thrust, or is it just I don't want to answer any of your questions?
What he's saying, like Aaron said, why are you picking on me? Because people have different opinions on a certain verse, like all the time. And why y'all picking on me just because I have a different opinion? But everyone's saying it's because your opinion is denying orthodoxy.
Has he specifically said, I do have a difference of opinion?
Well, he does, and he's trying to figure out his opinion.
He has explicitly said, though, just we get a new body when we die. That he has come out
and
he has said that.
Right.
Yeah.
But I guess my question is, has he specifically said, I have a difference of opinion on these 3 things?
No.
He refuses to answer them.
He just is basically saying, why is everyone picking on me?
But I just want to make sure I didn't miss something.
He's almost like saying, you have no right to ask me this question because you guys don't agree.
He compares, he makes everything a false equivalency. So throughout these podcasts, he made different views on baptism akin to this whole thing.
Right.
Different views on the 6 days of creation akin to this whole thing.
Yeah.
The nature of hell, annihilationism, eternal conscious torment, probably more important, but still not, and actually made a note of it. Hold on.
Yeah.
Do full preterists tend to lean that direction to it, like annihilation?
I don't think so.
I can't say that word.
No, they believe in.
You can get.
So you don't have a body.
They don't. It's hard to define they're not a monolithic group. The only thing they can agree on is Jesus came back already. That's basically their entire worldview.
Confession of faith with one
within the reformed world. I don't even want to call people reformed if they're a hyper-preterist, because you're not.
They're not all coming out anyway.
Because full preterism largely started in the churches of Christ.
Okay.
Max King was one of the first big guys in the 70s and the 80s. He kind of like really popularized full preterism, especially in the Churches of Christ.
Yeah.
But they, by definition, have a complete detestation of anything historical, anything confessional, anything creedal.
Yeah.
No creed but Christ. That me and my Bible under a tree. I don't care what anyone in generations past has said, because they were all just a bunch of stupid Catholics. That's where this idea really gained popularity. And then in the Reformed world, it kind of crept in through the partial preterist postmillennial angle.
Was it probably in the Reformed world a reaction to like the Hal Lindsey Left Behind and stuff? Like,
probably.
They just went too far.
But the pendulum has swung too far in the other direction, in my opinion.
Right. I would recommend to everybody, you can find it on YouTube. There's a series of lectures that James Jordan has done. Preterism versus hyper-preterism or something. The YouTube channel is just James B. Jordan Archives.
Yep.
And there's a playlist of, I think it's four or five talks. And those are great because he's a partial preterist and he is a wonderful exegete, but also really good with just biblical theology. Like one of his arguments against hyper-preterism is the fact that there's still a firmament. And then he goes from like Genesis to Revelation on that. And he's like, when I look up, I still see just stars. I don't see the Lord or, their presence right here. So the firmament, anyway, it's amazing. But even down to the Great Commission, right? The fact that it's nations matters, not just, singular, it's plural. He points out all kinds of really good stuff. So I would recommend everyone go listen to that. It's really, really helpful to understand, because that's what he does, is he refutes Max King and these other guys. These lectures were in the late 90s. And Theopolis Institute just put out another lecture that's similar by James B. Jordan about hyper-preterism. So go find their podcast and listen to that. It was released in the last month or so. And we're April 2023. So anyway, did you have something else in your notes you were looking at?
I mean, I have a lot of other stuff, but nothing that, needs to come up necessarily.
What do you want to make sure that we bring up, though? Because we're starting to kind of wind down here.
Oh, like a closing thoughts kind of thing?
Sure. Well, I don't want you to drive home and be like,
or a major point that you think we didn't.
Right, or a major point that we didn't
let's see.
touch on. You and I have had, dozens of conversations.
I made the joke that we should just live stream us reacting to all 5 podcasts at once and make it like a 12-hour all-day event.
If you guys want that...
That could be Patreon bonus content.
Leave a comment below.
We need some of that, right?
If you want Jake and I to listen to Gary DeMar's
we'll start
podcast,
and stop at every point we disagree with.
Start and stop.
Like A.D. Robles.
Right.
You think it's only going to take 12 hours? This is going to take a lot more than 12 hours.
That's true. We can listen to it sped up. I listened to him on 1.5, so...
Yeah, I think I did too. I had to. It was just too much.
Yeah.
But...
People talk so slow.
Yeah. I don't know if it's that fast, but I do speed it up. Oh, I told you this. I found out my... podcast app can delete silence, so that helps a lot. So anytime someone's like gathering their thoughts and there's like a 2-second silence, it just cuts it right out. It's glorious. Did you have a final? You had like a final thought, right?
Yeah, I did. I'm not going to read the whole thing because I typed like this is like 5 pages.
Yeah.
This is 5 pages long. But yeah, so I do have kind of a closing thought. We talk a lot about this. You're probably sick of hearing me rant about it at this point. I come from this as somebody who calls himself a partial preterist postmillennialist. And yet I'll go on rants often about partial preterist postmillennialists because I feel you're more critical of people you care more about, Like I said, my flaws more than anyone, even though you love me the most. I think it's easy. So he said on one of the things that I'm a worldview guy. I'm worried about how we're supposed to live now. I've never really been worried about these specific eschatological questions. I would say don't build your whole career on publishing books on eschatology if you have an unformed opinion about all of the major points. But that's kind of a side topic.
Right.
I would say that it seems to me, and again, this is anecdotal, that it's easier for postmillennial people to fall into that trap than other eschatologies. Because I think we've gotten to a point where a lot of us don't care about the second coming anymore. We care about winning here and now. don't lose sight of what we should really be hoping for.
Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
We win when Jesus comes back. That's when we win. I don't care how great things get. Right. It won't be nearly as good as the new heavens and the new earth. Yeah. That will be perfect. You know. Even in the church, it's not all peaches and cream if know people can't tell. Right. James Jordan published an article back in I think the 80s called "Yuppie Postmillennialism."
Nice.
And you had brought this up a little bit with the John Frame systematic theology, this idea that we're all going to just be rolling in piles of money. That's just kind of like the postmillennial view. So he wrote an article about called "Yuppie Postmillennialism," basically saying it shouldn't matter whether you think you'll live to see it. The second coming should still be what your hope is. That's not good. This Christianized, prosperous world where we're all, just rolling in stacks, that whole thing. So I think it's easy to fall into that if you lose balance when all of your eschatology just becomes about the temporal victory and not, and I think it's a little concerning that in that world of the partial preterist postmillennialists, which is DeMar has been in forever, that he has basically been saying all these things for 25 years and nobody seems to notice or care. I've noticed. Yeah. I've had conversations, over a year ago with friends of mine being like, yeah, I don't know about DeMar's eschatology. He kind of just seems like he would be a full preterist if it wouldn't get him in trouble, and apparently he just doesn't care about being in trouble anymore. So yeah, don't lose sight of the actual prize. Postmillennialism is, yes, it's very optimistic, but ultimately the real optimism is and Paul, Jesus coming back and
that was Paul's comfort for suffering, for all sorts of just Christian work in the kingdom was always like the future that we're gonna have, the hope of glory. These sufferings don't compare to the glory.
Well, that's about 80-72, don't you know? All of his recent podcasts with Kim Burgess from Chicago Fire are all about.
We got to do that. So we got to make this comment, Jake. So there's another podcast. I can't remember what it's called.
Covenant hermeneutics, something like that.
Know. Yeah, covenant hermeneutical system. I don't know. Yeah. But Gary DeMar does this podcast with this guy named Kim Burgess.
It's a guy named Kim?
It is. Yep. Yeah, it is.
That sucks.
I know.
That's not nice.
I'm sorry.
Parents were not nice.
I'm Erica. I get Eric all the time. I'm allowed to say that.
But so anyway, so we're listening. Jake and I are listening to this, doing our research and finding out what's going on. And I'm like, I really wonder what they're saying on this podcast, And so I look up Kim Burgess though. Like I guess he went to seminary with him. So I'm thinking, did he write a book? Does he have other videos or podcasts? I want to hear more from this guy. And I searched the name, just Kim Burgess, and all this stuff for the show Chicago Fire comes up. And I'm like, what is this?
Is that a TV show?
Yes.
Yeah.
The Chicago Fire Department.
The Chicago Fire Department.
But I feel like I remember this.
Completely fictional.
And one of the main actresses' names is Kim Burgess.
The character on the show's name is Kim Burgess.
Character, yeah.
I don't think,
Oh, not the same Kim. He wasn't an actor.
No, it's a girl.
Okay.
No, it's a girl.
So our joke is every time it comes up, we always make jokes. Oh yeah, from Chicago Fire, just because that's the only thing that comes up.
That's really funny.
But there's nothing actually. Yeah, you can't find this guy anywhere.
Or God writes some pretty funny stories. Is it really like a dumpster fire?
That's Chicago. Just kidding. If you
No, I mean like the podcast that he was on. Was it a dumpster fire?
No, I think a lot of people like it. I think I've never seen it, but so yeah. So my second closing thought would be a similar one.
Okay.
It's impossible. Reading the New Testament, it's impossible to separate how we're supposed to live with the reality of the end.
Yes.
Because I feel like you can fall into the mentality of, especially if you're overreacting to how a lot of dispensationalists are, where, they're just, the joke that they're constantly listening for the trumpets and not actually doing anything.
Right.
It's possible to overreact in the other direction where, well, I'm not going to live to see it, so just don't worry about it. It's impossible to separate how we're supposed to live with the reality of the end. I just took a couple of references at the end of 1 Corinthians 15 which obviously is the resurrection chapter.
Right.
Paul, these are the last couple of verses. But thanks be to God, which gives us the victory through our Lord Jesus Christ. Therefore, my beloved brethren, be ye steadfast, unmovable, always abounding in the work of the Lord, for as much as ye know that your labor is not in vain in the Lord. Titus 2. For the grace of God that brings salvation has appeared to all men, teaching us that denying ungodliness and worldly lusts, we should live soberly, righteously, and godly in this present world, or age. Looking for that
word, you know?
It's age, yeah. Looking for that blessed hope and the glorious appearing of the great God and our Savior, Jesus Christ. 2 Peter 3, again, if you think that's 80-70, I'm sorry, you're wrong. Anyway. Seeing then, talking about the new heavens and the new earth and the coming of Christ, seeing then that all these things shall be dissolved, what manner of persons ought ye to be in all holy conversation and godliness, looking for and hasting unto the coming of the day of God, wherein the heavens being on fire shall be dissolved, and the elements shall melt with fervent heat. Nevertheless, we, according to his promise, look for new heavens and a new earth, wherein dwelleth righteousness. Wherefore, beloved, seeing that ye look for such things, being diligent that ye may be found in him in peace, without spot and blameless. And the last one, which I think is a good one to end, is Philippians 3.
Yeah.
Nice. So you mentioned that earlier. But what things were gained to me, those I counted loss for Christ. Yea, doubtless, and I count all things but loss for the excellency of the knowledge of Christ Jesus my Lord, for whom I have suffered the loss of all things, and do count them but dung, that I may win Christ and be found in him, not having mine own righteousness which is of the law, but that which is through the faith of Christ, the righteousness which is of God by faith, that I may know him, and the power of his resurrection, and the fellowship of his sufferings, being made conformable unto his death, if by any means I might attain unto the resurrection of the dead. So, the reality of the end is why we're supposed to live the way we're called to live, is because we will be raised from the dead, we will be judged, the world will end, and, you know, earthly things are temporary, and, you know, so.
Good. I like it.
So after this little powwow with him happens, are you guys going to talk about, like, all of what comes from that? Are you guys going to do another episode, another podcast?
I'm down.
Yeah.
You guys want that?
Where all the deets finally come out.
Right, and see if he affirms anything.
He finally answers questions.
Yeah, no, we should talk about it.
Do you think he will answer questions?
Probably not.
You think they're going to corner him?
I don't know. I don't know the guy. I will say, you know, I think I've asked him twice to come on our podcast, and he never responded. So
it's maybe for the best, because if I had been there, it might not have gone too well.
Yeah. But
past you said this. Would we like to clarify that?
Yeah, I don't know personally, like, how he'll be, you know, but
who is interviewing him? Do you know?
I just think the Moscow crew. So probably Doug and people.
Doug and people.
Doug and people.
Doug and people. Doug and company.
That's too much.
Doug and
I think that's too much. I probably have to cut that out.
Do you think so?
Yeah.
You didn't know that was happening?
Yeah, he said it in his most recent video.
Oh, he did. Okay. Well, I'll have to cut out that part, but... Okay.
I was like, oh, I thought you
guys,
said...
I'm scared. I can't share more than...
Yeah, he said it publicly, like, yesterday.
Okay.
That there was a meeting being arranged with Canon Press and Fight Laugh Feast and Gary DeMar.
Canon Press, Fight Laugh Feast.
And if, you know, our worst fears are realized, then the Orthodox won't be disappointed, is how he put it. So, I don't know what that, you know, public caning, I don't know, but...
Yeah, I don't think he realizes what we're really looking for. That's funny. Okay. I will say, I do thank Gary DeMar for having the best book table at the Fight Laugh Feast conference when we went. I bought a lot of books off of his table, so if there's anything I can give Mr. DeMar thanks, it's for your book table. Gary, thank you. I got a bunch of them right here. Thank you for that. Anyway.
Yeah, thank you for that.
Are we good? Anything?
Yeah,
I'm
more? Good.
You good?
Yeah, I'm just trying to keep all of, like, the strings proper in my mind.
Yeah.
You guys could see Jake's, like, cheat sheet right here.
I know.
I got like 5 pages. I got like 5 pages of notes here.
Yeah, a lot of what Jake's put together, we might make that presentable for the blog and put that on the Take
It's like
Hold
that
blog.
meme of that woman looking into that glass, like, whiteboard thing with all the different...
Calculus.
All the stuff. Yeah.
All the calculus or whatever.
Yeah. The things that I don't understand.
Yeah, it's just helpful to see textually where it's coming from and what this means as far as the history of the church. Oh, I will plug Dr. Yuri Brito has put out
back on it.
He's put out some podcasts addressing this, and I think Hyperion Commentary has put out a couple of blog posts that address parts of this as well. His podcast is called The Perspectivalist. Go listen to that too. It's helpful. He really touches on what this means as far as creedally, confessionally for the church, even liturgically, like the things that we do in our weekly worship. This pertains to it. You know, it matters. So, a lot of good resources out there, guys. So, anyway, until next time, take hold and reorder creation by first reforming your home. This has been the Reformed Reset.
But on the basis of grace and on the finished work of Jesus Christ, the project is back and forth, and the destiny of a new transformed world is assured.
I just put the sourdough in the oven too, so I've got like 40 minutes.